AM Agenda.
Hello and welcome to AM Agenda. The Prime Minister's office has confirmed this morning that the Gillard Ministry will be sworn in tomorrow at Government House here in Canberra. There were some surprises, including Penny Wong in Finance, Chris Bowen in Immigration, but other appointments were entirely predictable, such as Kevin Rudd in the Foreign Affairs portfolio. Joining me to discuss the team and the challenges ahead, the new Minister for Ageing and Mental Health, Mark Butler in Adelaide. Good morning, Mark, and congratulations. And joining us from Melbourne, I've got the Shadow Parliamentary Secretary for Disability, Senator Mitch Fifield. Senator, good morning to you. I want to start with Mark Butler, though. Mark, you've been appointed the Minister for Mental Health and Ageing, as I say. The government was criticised during the campaign for its lack of focus on mental health. Julia Gillard says it will be a priority in the second term, but as I say, some criticism from Patrick McGorry and others in that sphere about what Labor has done, so it's a big responsibility for you.
Well, I welcome it. I will be the first, as far as I know, the first Commonwealth Minister for Mental Health, and as you say, it reflects a commitment that Julia Gillard made before the election and retains to make mental health a significant priority of a second-term Gillard government. So I'm very pleased to be taking on this significant challenge, and it reflects what we've said for some months now, which is that we do have more to do in mental health. It was identified by COAG at the meeting in April as a work priority for 2011, and a lot of that preparatory work is being done now between the Commonwealth departments and the state departments. So I very much look forward to this significant challenge and working with people like Pat McGorry.
Yeah, because you've got a lot of catch-up to do, don't you? Because Pat McGorry said that you dropped the ball, the government had dropped the ball in this area.
Well, we have made significant investment, both as part of the May 2010 budget to double the number of Headspace centres, for example, an initiative started I recognised by the previous government. We want to double the number of those centres. The Prime Minister during the election campaign unleashed a very significant suicide prevention program that we want to look to start implementing with a range of mental health stakeholders. So we do have a significant record in this area, but as I said, we recognise that there is more to do. This is a very significant challenge for the community, not just for our government, but for the broader community.
Senator Fifield, doesn't the appointment of a specific minister in Mark Butler show that Julia Gillard is being true to her word and making this a priority in the second term?
Well, firstly, congratulations to Mark on his appointment, but I think you were right, Kieran. This is an indication that the government is playing catch-up. During the campaign, the current government committed less than a quarter of what the coalition committed to mental health, and the government's plan was roundly condemned by Patrick McGorry and others. The coalition gets mental health, the government's playing catch-up, and I hope that Mark is more persuasive with the Prime Minister than his predecessor was.
Well, Mark, doesn't it come down to funding a lot of this? You saw Jim Mendoza and others, one of your chief advisors in this area, quit because of a lack of money. And the coalition, as Mitch said, did commit $1.5 billion to the area. Doesn't it, a lot of it come down to resources and stepping those resources up?
Well, it does. I don't want to be definitive about what we intend to do. I mean, I haven't had my briefings yet. I haven't met with a number of the key stakeholders yet, obviously. But obviously investment is part of the package that needs to be considered by stakeholders, by our government and by state governments. But what we discovered at COAG is, what we identified at COAG is that state governments have historically had pretty much overwhelming responsibility, at least for severe mental illness, and they deal with these issues in very, very different ways. The funding allocated to these issues from state to state is very different. There's from memory, about a 30 or 35% gap between the state that invests the least in mental health and the state that invests the most in mental health. So we have a job of work to do to start to get some national consistency and uniformity about dealing with this Australian problem. It's not a Victorian or a South Australian problem, it's a national problem, and we as the Commonwealth have said that we want to play a greater role in dealing with one of the great challenges the community faces.
One of the great challenges that Labor faces is on immigration policy and border protection. Kevin Rudd is going to be the Foreign Minister, as we know, and he has to implement, Mark, a policy that he opposed when he was Prime Minister. That is, of course, the East Timor resolution to this, the East Timor Offshore Processing Centre. How's he going to manage that? It's obviously going to be a difficult one for him.
Well, this is quite a different proposition, the proposition that Julia Gillard has outlined, the regional processing centre that would be done within the international multilateral arrangements under the Refugee Convention. So this is quite a different proposition to the one that Kevin Rudd as Prime Minister might have made some comments about, namely the previous government's offshore processing centre in Nauru that was outside the jurisdiction of the UNHCR because Nauru is not a signatory to that convention.
But Kevin Rudd was known to have opposed this idea of East Timor. This specific idea, Kevin Rudd was known to have opposed it. On the day that he was toppled, he met with the East Timorese leadership, didn't raise it, and it had been discussed in Labor ranks prior to that. So it showed that he didn't want it.